This is Mission Qualfon, a monthly podcast that takes you inside the workings of our company, but not just the ins and outs of business. We look at the ideas and insights that make Qualfon truly unique. As a company, we are committed to being the best and making each person's life better. Join us as we get to know and learn from people from across the organization. What's their story? What have they learned? And how do they live out Qualfon's mission? Welcome to Mission Qualfon.
Hey, Jeremy. How are you?
I am doing well, Marisol. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I just got back from dropping off one of my children at college. So It's been using one of our last guest's words, transformative.
Yes.
It's been a transformative week for me.
Good. So what type of feedback have you been getting from our last episode with Mary Carmen?
The feedback I've gotten has been all 100%. You know what? Actually, for the whole podcast, all 10 episodes up to date, what I've received via email or social media or text pings, etc., has been 100% positive. I've yet to receive anything but wildly positive feedback about the people we're interviewing. And I will say for Mary Carmen's episode, I feel like I can't say exactly the number, but I feel like there was a lot of, oh my God, I was crying. I was crying. A lot of our coworkers listened to that and felt very inspired. So that was awesome. It made me very happy. And I'm very proud of that episode. I have been thinking though, Jeremy, that that episode was such a wonderful personification of our mission and the Gonzalez family and their dreams for the company. It's such a bold initiative, that Qualfon has to touch every employee, their families, and communities, to have a positive impact on all those things. And I started to get a little scared because it's like, we are a company with thousands upon thousands of employees in an industry that can and does have its challenges. Mm-hmm. Are we doing it? Are we accomplishing it? Is it happening at Qualfon? Does that translate? Because, if you have some experience in BPO, you know that not every employee has had an idyllic, utopian experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, let's just be honest, the reputation of the BPO industry, contact center, is high turnover. By its very nature, it's very reactive. And so, I share that concern. How well are we all, as part of the human condition, right? None of us are perfect. How well do we do as rank and file employees of Qualfon at living these values and living the mission genuinely at Qualfon? And I think that's good to call out. And I can tell you, in my role, I do the supervisor certification training. So I am training new supervisors all the time. That's a big part of what I do in my role. And, let's just be honest. I have the opportunity to hear experiences that are shared with me that aren't positive. And I think that's just the reality, is that none of us are perfect. We have a great goal, a great mission as a company. And I think that's our challenge as leaders in the company. Is our founders have set this standard, and that's our great challenge to try and live up to that standard.
And I think it's a challenge that we're meeting head on. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, I feel like I could speak. I feel I could speak for the whole BPO industry. No, I can't say that. But I feel I could speak that I confidently can say that we are trying harder than any company I've ever known, even outside of BPO, to try to satisfy people.
Well, and what's interesting, Marisol, and our guest that we'll be talking with today, I work with him. He's my boss. And I have sat in on several interviews where we're interviewing, whether it's someone who will be a poet that we'll talk about today, whether they will be a Qualfon University coordinator, whatever the role. You know what the main questions he asks them are? They're about Stride's values. He will ask them, what's your interpretation of this, particular Stride's value? How would you live that? So, and he's not the only one. And I guess my point here is that, no, we're not perfect. Many of us fall short. Well, all of us fall short at some point, but it's nice that we have these values as a measuring stick, right? We know that, and a lot of companies, they don't, they talk a good talk, but we actually hold these Strides values up and say, are we living up to it? And I see it. Those discussions about Strides values come in when we're making business decisions. And that's encouraging.
To me, I look at the intention, where the money flows, and what I see is a company with the highest absolute intentions I've ever experienced. So we can't always say that we have 100% employee satisfaction. I don't know any company that can, because I don't think in the human experience that's possible, but we're trying. We're trying. And that we can meld a world that is BPO, has a spiritual alignment, and has a mission like we do, with the conversation we're about to have about processes and engineers and continuous improvement. To me, it's amazing.
It is amazing. And I get to work with our guest every day because I report to my guest. We're talking with Al Barrenechea, who is the director of Qualfon University. And Al, I am lucky to be able to, like I said, work with you every day, and we are constantly talking to each other. But I would love for you to share just a brief work history and tell us what you do now for Qualfon.
Sure, Jeremy, and thank you for inviting me. I have to say that I am the lucky one, Jeremy, because I get to work with you every day.
Thank you.
To answer the question, I'm an industrial engineer and have a master's degree in operations research, which is mathematical modeling and information systems. I've been in the professional career for almost 40 years now, coming into 40 next year. And in that time, for about 35 of those years, I spent in manufacturing, supply chain, logistics in several different, industries, certainly manufacturing, also, marketing and sales for retail, the products that we manufactured, and also in technology. So I worked for IBM and some of its subsidiaries selling software for manufacturing. So that was my life before I came to Qualfon 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And of course, I have been in the position you just mentioned.
Anyone listening will probably think, well, this man with the background in manufacturing, in operations, in mathematics, all of this stuff that you do, you're in charge of Qualfon University. How did that happen?
Well, that is a very long story, and but it basically happened, with having a conversation with our Chief Mission Officer Roberto, who I knew from before, regarding leadership. In and on we went and talking about leadership and how to create a solid foundation where mission leaders can stand on and launch from, and become better and better mission leaders. So that was the beginning, and in the end is what you just described today.
First of all, I think, we talk a lot about mentorship. And so I don't work directly for Al, but I've worked with Al on a lot of different sort of ad hoc projects. I always feel like scared to let Al know that I'm working with him on something.
No. They have always been good projects, and I always have fun working with you.
But there's generally one call I make to you where I'm like almost near tears. So he's also a wonderful example of the mentor tenet that we have so much at Qualfon. Al, I want to start out with, we're titling this podcast, continuous improvement. The first time I heard that phrase, I was about 20 years ago. It was actually Mike Morrow at a different company, not Qualfon. And it was probably the busiest I'd ever been in my career. It was before I was married and had children. And it was easily 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. I was traveling, a lot going on. And he calls a meeting and presents, which to me was the first time I remember hearing it, this idea of continuous improvement. And I remember I never said anything to him, but I remember at the time just completely shutting down, because in my head I was just like, what? Like, when am I supposed to do this? So I'd like you to start with sharing what is continuous improvement, why we do it, how we do it, and why it's so important to us.
Sure, Marisol. Well, as the term says, continuous improvement, right? To improve continuously, When I think of continuous improvement, you know what I think of? The Olympic Games. I think about that because in the Olympic Games, we break records all the time, continuously, for years and years. I don't know, the modern Olympic Games started, in the late 1800s? Mm-hmm. And ever since then, we have been breaking records in every single sport there is every 4 years, right? And then, you say, why? Well, the reason is people are thinking that it is possible. It is possible to do it a little bit better, and you think about it, there's so many ways in which one can improve, right? Speaking of the Olympics, yes, perhaps the tennis shoes have become, more efficient and better tennis shoes to stride and be faster.
Or updated technologies. And
exactly. But also there's, you think of the swimmers, for example, and hey, the water is the same for years and years and years, right? Yet the swimmers continue to become better. So the essence is that people become better if they want to, and they can. It's a matter of willing to become better. Speaking of setting, breaking records, I remember very well early in my career, the president of the company I was working for, that was in manufacturing. One year he said, you know what, we're not going to have any goals this year. What? Everybody's like, hey, this is great, right? You all have a floor, but there's no ceiling in this company. This is the way he put it. Meaning, you stand where you are at today, your indicators, your KPIs and so forth, that's where you stand today. But you can go, the sky is the limit. You can go anywhere you want. And then from there on, instead of measuring against a set goal, i.e. the ceiling, he said, we're going to measure how often we improve and then how much. So those are going to be 2 indicators, and you can go as far as you want. So to me, that is continuous improvement, to continue to improve to eternity.
and I told that story about Mike because it's something I feel that he's been obsessed with for years. So fast forward 20 years, we're working at Qualfon. I'm Six Sigma certified, and we're listening to this. I'm on a conference call, let's say, I don't know how many months ago. And the majority of the people on the conference call are Six Sigma certified. And I got really emotional on the listening. I wasn't participating in the call. It was actually Juan Pablo was presenting, someone else that works for Al. And I just remember getting really emotional because I'm like, oh my God, this is like his dream realized 20 years later of a company who completely embodies this culturally, we're constantly striving to identify opportunities to improve. I mentioned Six Sigma a lot. That's also under your purview. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Six Sigma?
Six Sigma. Well, Six Sigma is a methodology or a philosophy of improvement like many others. When we say continuous improvement, that's like saying sports. And then under sports, there's football and soccer and hockey and baseball and so forth, right? There are many methodologies. Six Sigma is one. You've heard about Lean, perhaps, and theory of constraints, and 5S, and just-in-time, total quality management. Those are all continuous improvement philosophies or methodologies. Six Sigma is very comprehensive, and it's one of the ones that deal with data very well. That's why we in this industry use it very effectively, because we produce in this industry, in the BPO industry, we produce a lot of data. So Six Sigma comes in very, very handy. We do apply many other concepts here in the company. For example, Lean, that calls for identifying and eliminating waste. We do that a lot. As a matter of fact, that's how we start many projects. When we identify there is a waste of some kind, and there are many kinds of waste, actually it's like 7, and then we identify the waste, and then we go and apply some Six Sigma methodologies in order to be able to eliminate it and improve. So that's what Six Sigma is all about. It's a methodology, a philosophy of continuous improvement in the modern administration, no?
So Al, from someone outside the company looking in, they might see, this commitment to continuous improvement, Six Sigma, Lean, all of this, and think, oh, that is great. But organizationally speaking, someone might stand back and go, okay, why is this falling under the mission? Because you're part of the mission, you're over Qualfon University, which I think people assume correctly that it's typically corporate universities are about, learning and development and learning leadership skills and all of those things. And in our organization, this continuous improvement rolls up under you in the Qualfon University. So how does this sync up with our mission, this focus on continuous improvement?
And that's a great question, Jeremy. And of course, it was not my decision. It was an executive decision. Whenever that decision was made, we're only, a conduit to get education. And like any other university, you're in charge of the Six Sigma education, Jeremy, and the certification and all that. And that's half of the answer, right? The other half is putting it in practice. And we see how regularly in universities, there's this consulting area, this consulting effort as well, right? So in my mind, that was perhaps the motivation to have both education and consulting under the same umbrella. And the reason why it's under mission, number one, Qualfon University and specifically Leadership Academy was already under mission. I think it is a good place to put it, because if you think of our mission, it has like 2 big sides. One is to become the best company there is, a partner for our clients, right? And the other one is to make every person's life better. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, those two need each other. It's like a symbiotic relationship there. They cannot live without each other, because the better company we become, the more resources we have to make everybody's life better through what the mission says, right? Helping them to find their vocation and developing their vocation, right? The happier and the more developed they become, the better they perform. And the better they perform, the better business we become. And there we go on and on and on in a virtuous cycle, right?
I love that.
So to me, it falls right into the mission because of that reason, I think.
So I think it's safe to say that continuous improvement is a component of management, and it's something that people don't fully understand. And so that's why we invest the time and effort into training folks this. And because it's an overall approach to managing, it makes sense that it falls under Qualfon University.
We have a lot of acronyms in our industry, and the next one is coined by us at Qualfon, and it's something that I consider makes us, I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, differentiator.
You did.
Yeah, I did. From other BPOs, and that's our poets, which again falls under your purview, Al. So could you tell us what poets stand for? Why do we have them, and why our clients love this concept so much? Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not because they like the poetry that we write. The poet stands for Process Optimization Engineering Team. So anyone who belongs to that team becomes a poet. That's the way we look at it, no? Mm-hmm. Now, what do poets do and don't? I'll start with what they don't, perhaps. They don't own the process that they're analyzing or studying. They don't make any decisions regarding that process. Poets go in and they assist, they facilitate in a project, and they do it for different reasons in many occasions, many more than what we know. Employees in the company don't need us. They don't need a poet because, as you all know, we have how many now, Jeremy? Over 1,350 Greenbelt certified employees in the company. So there's a lot of knowledge out there, and there are a lot of people in the company who can identify a problem and, of course, can use the tools to solve that problem. In some other cases, however, especially with new initiatives such as end-to-end, 0 to 60, build to pay, the strategic account initiatives, that's where poets come in and help best, I think. In some other cases, there's a need for more hours of energy to be able to tackle a problem, more man hours, and we can help there as well. But we do that. We facilitate and we assist. That's what poets do.
One thing that's very interesting, unique to us, I think, is the fact that every supervisor in the company is required to be Six Sigma certified. That means they go through, continuous improvement training. They actually receive certification from a third-party organization, and they go through a long test. Anyone that's tested for Six Sigma, you know what I'm talking about here. So we've got this immense focus on continuous improvement and folks getting certified. And as Al mentioned, we've got over 1,300 current employees who are Greenbelt certified. And yet, on the other hand, we've talked about in other podcasts, this focus of our mission and specifically our Strides values. So Al, how does all this inertia behind, Six Sigma and continuous improvement, how does that overlap or tie into Strides values? And specifically, when we talk about our poets, how does that all work? How do they align with those Strides values?
Thank you for asking that question, Jeremy. I think it's a great question, and very much to the heart of Qualfon, to what we do and what we believe and what we preach every day. Mm-hmm. As you well said, all of our supervisors go through the training, not only the Six Sigma training, which is very analytical, mathematical, and so forth, but they also, and you're one of the best in giving the Strides values and teaching the Strides values, right? One can say that those are two opposite ends of the spectrum, and perhaps they are. But here in Qualfon, I believe the spectrum is not a line, it's a circle where the ends meet. And I found that out because when I was first coming here into Qualfon, I had a couple of companies. One was a manufacturing company, and the other one was a consulting company that I kept very small on purpose because I wanted to meet with my clients myself. I didn't want to have consultants meeting with my clients, so I kept it very, very small. But I always thought, I had in my mind a list of behaviors that I wanted to show with my client to be able to be effective in my work as a consultant. When I came to Qualfon, and within the first 2 or 3 weeks, I heard you, Jeremy, teaching the Strides values. And, consulting was very fresh in my mind because I had, just done it over the past 1 or 2 months very much. And I was going, well, these are the exact behaviors that I was looking for in my consulting work. When you think about service, a consultant is at the service of his or her client, isn't it? And teamwork, well, you create a team and you belong to that team just as if you were part of the company that you are consulting to, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, results, it's at the center of everything we do in consulting in any way, right? Integrity, that's a very, very important one. Integrity. Many times, and I've seen it in my life, I work with consultants a lot, how a consultant can become a little too proud, perhaps, of what his or her knowledge might be in compared to his client's knowledge, right? And start not behaving with a whole lot of integrity, perhaps taking some credit for things that are not totally his or hers for the better of his business as a consultant, right? that's not behaving with integrity. Same thing with dignity, many times, and because of the same reason, a consultant may look down, to put it that way, to the client because of the knowledge that he or she has against what his client understands or knows. Encouragement is huge because, as we all know, when we engage in a project, it's something like extra, additional that we have to do, right? Yes, it is done so that I can improve and perhaps I can become more efficient and have more time in the future, but it is an investment. And like any investment, you have to persist, you have to stay on track. To be able to do that, you have to be encouraged. So we as consultants, as poets, we're encouraging the teams to continue on and work, And then there's spirituality. Spirituality, yes, I do believe that we are enlightened by our Creator many times in order to be able to figure out what we do with certain obstacle in front of us. But also, in the way that we look at it here in Qualfon is the golden rule, right? We like to treat others. I would like others to treat us. And that is very, very important. I mean, that goes, if you think about it, all the values before spirituality, service, teamwork, results, integrity, dignity, encouragement, they all are finally put together in one single one, and that is the golden rule for spirituality. So to me, the Strides values are key, are a great foundation. I just couldn't believe when I first came in, I said, my goodness, this is the list I had been trying to put together for all this time.
Al, that was beautifully said. So Al, with Qualfon University and all your experience, all these certifications that we do, what do you find is the hesitation most commonly? Like I mentioned, for me, 20 years ago, it was, where am I going to find the time to do any of this? But generally speaking, what do you see as a common hesitation?
Yeah, we all feel that way because we're human beings. Very often when we go to something, whether we're young or not, we learn something new and we don't dare to use it right away, at least not all the time, not everything we learn. The reason why, I don't know, I guess sometimes it is fear of perhaps not doing it by the book or fear of being criticized or whatever the case may be. And sometimes we also justify it with time. I don't have time. When I think of fear, I think of sports. I think of, those great sportsmen that we have seen and heard over the years. Michael Jordan in basketball, or Messi or Ronaldo for those who like soccer. They're great scorers, and they try a lot. They take a lot of shots to be able to score one time. But one thing they don't have is fear. They don't care if they miss. They don't care if somebody's going to criticize them. They know that if they don't take the shot, they will never score. So that is one thing that I always think of, and I try to tell my students when I have the chance to teach them, dare to use what you have learned. If you don't use it right the first time, I'm sure the second time it will be better. And by the third or fourth time you use it, you're going to be a pro. So that is with that. When time is the issue, I think of, there was a coach for UCLA in the 60s and 70s. His name was John Wooden. He brought the team to 10 championships in 12 years. So he was very, very, very effective. And he has a lot of quotes. I read of him a lot because of his leadership type quotes. There's one that I always think of, and that is, he said, if you don't have the time to do it right the first time, when will you have the time to do it over, right? So we need to think about this. When we sit and we say, hey, I don't have the time to do this. Well, this is the time that you're going to invest. So every time you do this, you're going to do it right? So time is like money, it's a very, very precious commodity that we all have. We all care a lot about it, and we should. But we need to think of how we spend it wisely, to use one of the agreements, because spending it wisely means utilizing it, investing it where it best belongs, right? perhaps in to conclude, here at Qualfon, I have seen, and again, I've been, almost 40 years in my professional career, all of them one way or another involved in continuous improvement. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like what we have here in Qualfon, and I really mean it.
It's like seeing his dream realized. When I say that's because in other companies, it's been exposed, or we went through maybe a training or two, but it's not in the culture. It was never in the culture the way I sense it here at Qualfon.
Yep. And there's always room for improvement, of course. So there is improvement to go through, but we're already today, and I don't know where we sit. I mean, it's very hard for me to measure, but my gut feeling tells me that we're very, very high, not only in the BPO industry, in every industry, very, very high as far as how high we have reached already the continuous improvement culture that we wanted to reach. And that is because of many things. One is the structure that we have, which we have been talking about through education and the work we do in the consulting area, but also the tremendous work and ability that our employees have already, because they have the knowledge and the capacity to do this. Speaking of the structure, I think one of the key success factors, in my opinion, is the support from specifically the chairman, the CEO, and his executive team. A top-down approach. It couldn't have been done better in this company. There's not only the support, but the engagement of our executives. Mike, for example, it's about hours. It's not just about what he says or what he thinks. It's the number of hours that he puts into continuous improvement, projects.
There's buy-in from the top, from the very, very top, to create this culture within our organization, which I think also, we've talked so much about our employees, but what a benefit to our clients as well. I mean, this is what we bring to them. This organization that has such a passion for education and continuously improving, not just ourselves, but in turn, their business.
And we've heard it already from the clients themselves, exactly what you just said. Performance, to me, equals capacity times motivation. And the multiplicator there is important, because you can have all the capacity in the world, you can know all the tools, be a super black belt and be, have all the knowledge in the world. But if you're not motivated, if the motivation is zero, the performance is going to be zero. The other way around, the same thing. If you're totally motivated, but you don't understand the basics, you don't understand the tools, can't use them, your performance is going to be zero. So I think it's a combination of both. And here in Qualfon, that's exactly what we're doing. We're, the tools, the knowledge is being given in a very structured, very serious way. And that motivation is huge. I mean, we could not be more motivated to improve than in this company. I can't think of one. I mean, I read books and articles and stuff, and I don't see this story. I hope it's a story that we write about one day.
Well, we're sharing it on this podcast, and I thank you for coming on and sharing all the wonderful things that you do within Qualfon, for Qualfon. And even if I were to leave Qualfon, all the things that I'm taking with it, I get to take with me for the rest of my life. And it's a blessing to have these educational resources available to us. It's just another thing that makes us special.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful for you all. And I'm also grateful for the company and the opportunities that it provides to all of us as well, Marisol. Well said.
So Al mentioned that currently we have about 1,300 certified employees. Mm-hmm. I know I'm certified. You're certified. You teach certification for the supervisors. Mm-hmm. But I think it's worth mentioning that Mike's certified. I believe Alfonso is certified. I know his children are certified. This is not a thing to check off the list. This is like entrenched in our company's DNA.
Absolutely. All the executive team is certified. Our chief financial officer is certified. All the folks that work for him are certified. Our chief mission officer is certified. I mean, trainers, HR managers, just about everyone in leadership is certified.
And I just want to take a second, because I always do have hopes that, we have people in production who listen to our podcast. For some people, regardless of position, maybe the idea of getting Six Sigma certified is intimidating because math is not their first love or second or third. But don't let that intimidate you, because being able to learn to read the charts and understand how data is collected, it's just a great gift.
Well, and we've done a great job. I say we, it's not really me, but like our facilitator, Scott, does a phenomenal job of talking about it in terms of tools and kind of demystifying and taking even someone who doesn't like math can understand many of these tools and put them to work right away. And that, I think, is what we're talking about when we say it's become part of our culture, is this idea of continuous improvement is a mindset. And even if you're not a mathematician, there are still takeaways and tools that you could put to work right away that can impact the organization.
Yes. And I think I also just want to add that Qualfon is an organization that it is okay to say, I don't know the answer, I don't understand, because we're like surrounded by teachers everywhere and they want to help.
And that's a great point.
Well, Jeremy, I've had my boss on twice. This is your first time. Well, no, I guess Roberto indirectly. How did it feel to have your boss interview your own boss?
Al is, what we were missing from this, which we don't hear, is Al and I were both on our best behavior. So what we missed was there's a lot of joking that goes around, and Al's just very humorous. He's a very funny guy, very fun to work with. And interesting story, and Al didn't share this. He's very modest. He's a very modest guy. But remember when he was talking about Olympic athletes, he's talking about athletes and all this. Well, a lot of people don't know this. Al was on the Costa Rican national team in volleyball. And during the time he was there, it wasn't an Olympic year. So I don't believe he ever went to the Olympics, but he's a Olympic level athlete. And of course, again, Al always downplays it, and he'll tell you, I wasn't the best athlete. But it's interesting when you hear his story is he said as he was trying out for the team, he kept making the cut. And they'd start out with 100 people and they'd get down to 50 people, and he kept making the cut. And he finally went to the coach and he said, "Coach, I appreciate I'm still on the team, but I know I'm not one of the best players here." And his coach said, "You might not be the best player, but I need you on this team because of your attitude and your leadership." And that sums up Al. That sums up Al.
Completely. Yes. I find him very calming.
No, that's a very good word for it. He's very steady.
Yes, he's very grounding.
Grounded, yes.
Yeah, very grounded. So I've always appreciated getting advice from him and navigating my career at Qualfon. I'm grateful for him for doing the podcast. And Jeremy, thank you for partnering with me on this journey of the Mission Qualfon podcast. I can't believe we are on number 11. Thank you everyone for subscribing and following us. We really, truly appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mission Qualfon. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Mission Qualfon.